January 17, 1961. A nation holds its breath. The world, balanced on a razor's edge, listens as a celebrated war hero, a five-star general turned to term president, prepares to address his people one last time. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the man who led the Allies to victory in Europe, is saying farewell. But this is no ordinary goodbye. Hidden within his words is a chilling prophecy, a warning that will echo through the decades, a message more relevant today than ever before. The Cold War is at its frostiest peak. The United States and the Soviet Union, two superpowers armed with enough nuclear firepower to score bait of the Earth, are locked in a silent, deadly dance. Schoolchildren practice duck-and-cover drills, their innocent faces a stark contrast to the grim reality of potential atomic annihilation. Families build fallout shelters in their backyards, a desperate attempt to create a pocket of safety in a world teetering on the brink of Armageddon. The air is thick with paranoia and suspicion. It's in this atmosphere of profound anxiety that President Eisenhower steps up to the podium. His face, etched with the lines of a man who has carried the weight of the world, is broadcast in grainy black and white into millions of American homes. What he says next will not be a comforting platitude or a nostalgic look back at his presidency. It will be a stark, unflinching look at a new and insidious power rising from within America itself. He speaks not of a foreign enemy, but of a domestic threat, one born from the very conflict it was designed to win. He begins with the familiar cadence of a seasoned leader, thanking the American people. But the tone quickly shifts. The warmth recedes, replaced by a solemn gravity. He talks about the monumental changes the nation has undergone, particularly in its defense posture. Before World War II, America had no permanent armaments industry. A farmer could put down his plow, pick up a rifle, and go to war. But that world is gone, erased by the fires of global conflict and the icy grip of the Cold War. In its place, something new has emerged. Eisenhower describes a vast, sprawling entity, a conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry. This is the first time the American public hears the term that will haunt the corridors of power for generations to come, the military-industrial complex. His voice is measured, deliberate, each word carrying the weight of his experience. He explains how this new reality is a necessity. To deter the Soviet threat, to maintain peace through strength, America needed to build a war machine of unprecedented scale. Factories that once produced cars now churn out tanks. Shipyards that built commercial vessels now construct nuclear submarines. An entire economy, an entire way of life, has been reoriented around the perpetual preparation for war. The archival footage rolls. Smokestacks billow dark plumes into the sky. Endless assembly lines of workers, their faces grimly determined, piece together the machinery of destruction. Bombers, sleek and silver, sit on tarmacs, their noses pointed towards an unseen enemy. This is the visual embodiment of Eisenhower's words. The sheer scale is staggering. The total influence of this complex economic, political, even spiritual is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. It employs millions, directly or indirectly. Its financial tendrils reach into every corner of the American economy. He isn't condemning it outright. He acknowledges its vital role in national security. But it's the next part of his speech that sends a shiver down the spine. It is the warning. He implores the nation to guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Unwarranted influence. The phrase hangs in the air, heavy with implication. What does he mean? He's speaking of a quiet, creeping power, a power that operates behind the scenes, shaping policy not for the good of the public, but for its own perpetuation and profit. He paints a picture of a future where public policy could become the captive of a scientific technological elite. A future where the roar of the factory and the siren call of profit drown out the quiet, reasoned voices of diplomacy and peace. He warns that the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. He is saying that the very entity created to protect democracy could become its greatest threat. Think about it. An industry that profits from conflict has a vested interest in continuous tension. A military establishment that justifies its enormous budget through perceived threats has little incentive to see those threats diminish. The interests of the arms manufacturers, the generals, and the politicians who rely on their support could align, creating a self-sustaining cycle of fear and spending. The line between defense and aggression, between necessity and greed, could become dangerously blurred. Eisenhower, the general who knew war better than almost any man alive, is telling the American people that the greatest danger may not be the enemy abroad, but the powerful interests at home who have a stake in perpetual conflict. His warning extends beyond the political and economic. He speaks of the spiritual cost. The risk of a garrison state, where the nation's resources, its intellect, and its very soul are poured into the machinery of war, leaving little for education, health, or the arts. He fears a future where the cost of a single modern bomber is a new school in one city, a hospital in another, a power plant, a library. He sees the human cost, the opportunities lost, the potential squandered on weapons of mass destruction instead of tools of human progress. This is the heart of his prophecy. He is not just talking about budgets and contracts. He is talking about the character of the nation. Will America remain a beacon of liberty and democracy, or will it slowly transform into a state perpetually on a war footing, its priorities dictated by the demands of the complex it created? His voice, though calm, carries an undercurrent of deep urgency. He is passing the torch to a new generation, to his fellow citizens, and charging them with a sacred duty to keep this powerful combination in check, to ensure that security and liberty may prosper together. It is a task for an alert and knowledgeable citizenry. He is calling for vigilance, for skepticism, for active participation in the democratic process to balance the immense power of this new force. As his speech concludes, the screen fades from the images of military hardware to the faces of ordinary Americans in 1961. They are listening, but do they truly understand the gravity of his words? Can they comprehend the complex web of influence he is describing? Eisenhower's farewell was not just a historical footnote. It was a clairvoyant warning. In the decades that followed, his words would be invoked time and again as America found itself embroiled in conflicts from Vietnam to the Middle East. Debates raged over ballooning defense budgets, no big contracts to private military corporations, and the revolving door between the Pentagon and the defense industry. The very scenarios he feared seemed to play out on the world stage. The military-industrial complex, far from shrinking after the Cold War's end, seemed to find new enemies, new justifications for its existence and expansion. The question today is not whether Eisenhower was right, but how right he was. We live in the world he foresaw. A world of permanent military readiness, where the lines between public interest and private profit in matters of war and peace are often blurred. A world where technological advancements in warfare outpace our ethical and political ability to control them. His final plea was for balance. Balance between private and public economy, between cost and hope for advantage, between the clearly necessary and the comfortably desirable, between our essential requirements as a nation and the duties imposed by the nation upon the individual, between actions of the moment and the national welfare of the future. The search for this balance, he said, is the ultimate task of statesmanship. It is a task that falls to us now. Eisenhower's farewell address is more than just a speech. It is a foundational text for understanding the modern world. It is a reminder that the greatest threats to freedom can often come from within, cloaked in the guise of patriotism and security. It is a call to action for every citizen to remain vigilant, to question authority, and to never allow the machinery of war to dictate the destiny of a free people. As we look at the conflicts and tensions of our own time, we must ask ourselves, are we heeding the old general's warning? Are we, the alert and knowledgeable citizenry he called for, doing enough to safeguard our liberties from the unwarranted influence he so feared? The answer to that question will define our future. Thank you for watching. If this piece of history resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world. Stay vigilant.